Running the floor. Embiid stuffs it.
Harden for three. James Harden with his second triple.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to a somber episode of the Pick Swap podcast. This is the first episode we're doing following the Sixers elimination from the playoffs. If you guys listened to the last episode, you're probably surprised to hear us here. I was very, very optimistic about the rest of that series. Lo and behold, the Sixers break my heart once again. I'm here with Sean Barnard as usual. Sean, how are you feeling in off-season week one?
Yeah, I mean, inexcusable not to show up with any effort for back-to-back games in the playoff series. Shout out to Phoenix Suns for topping the Sixers for most disappointing playoff exit. So at least we got that going for us. But, I mean, a lot going on this offseason, a lot still to watch. And for now, we'll just reflect on it and break open the Band-Aid one more time.
Yeah, we just talked about it a little bit before we hit the record. I'm not torn up about it. I was for a little bit. I was for a couple of days. I'm actually really happy that we didn't do a pod for a while. It allowed me to kind of cool down, take this for what it's worth. And we're going to talk a lot about, the season as a whole. And then obviously in the coming weeks, we'll be talking about everything that comes along with the rest of this postseason, and then going into next season. And this offseason will be a big one for what this team looks like going forward. But before we get into all that today, we do want to thank our sponsor, BetUS. And if you guys are interested in betting on the rest of this postseason with the Mavericks and the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals and the dreaded Boston-Miami Eastern Conference Finals, go ahead and use our code PICKSWAP at login to get your first bet risk-free up to $500. You can join in on the fun by going to the link in our bio on the YouTube here down below, or check out on the podcast description as well, wherever you guys are getting that. Use our code PICKSWAP at login for your first bet risk-free up to $500. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty here, Sean. Who do you blame the most?
I mean, I'm not going to lay it out just like that yet. There's a lot. Just so disappointing how it went down. To be only down one at halftime and then just to come out completely flat in that second half. Outscored 25-15 in the third quarter, broke the whole game open, and just there really just was no fight in the Sixers team. Score ended 99-90. The game was way further away than that. Felt like the Sixers really never had a chance at it. And even watching the first half, it was one of those, like, they just don't quite have it. And it wasn't as simple as, like, talking prior to the series. We kind of talked about, like, how, like, the Sixers aren't going to shoot that bad or stuff like this. I mean, Sixers shot better from three than the Heat. They put on, like, the number. They didn't turn the Heat turned the ball over more. A lot like that, and they still just didn't have it. So I give Jimmy Butler a ton of credit for just being the playoff Jimmy Butler that he's proving to be. And it was heartbreaking to watch all the Embiid and Butler love fest after the game. Hated seeing that. If I'm handing out responsibility as a whole, I'm probably throwing the most on James Harden, to be honest. We're going to get into a lot about the long-term future of that. But for him to just be non-existent in that second half, 0 for 2 from the field, 0 for 2 from 3, didn't even remotely get in the paint, scored less points than Ben Simmons in his final game with the team. So in that Hawks series, I would equate that to just as embarrassing of a performance as Ben Simmons in the Hawks series. So that's how I feel about it. It's inexcusable not to show up, and it does give me some legitimate long-term concerns.
Yeah, I'm over that for now. I don't know, man. It kind of just is what it is. In reality, the Sixers missed their best player. They're one of the best players in the world for the first two games of that series. They weren't really given a chance in those first two games. They didn't really have a chance. Miami was just a deeper team that had more guys that can play.
Yeah.
I don't know how to really put it other than that. If you want to talk about it that way, I almost feel like the blame falls on the front office.
Fair.
For, not putting together a strong enough team. Like, when you really only have, and I know a lot of teams are down to, 8 men in their rotation right now. This is the playoffs. No one's going 10 deep in their rotation anymore. But like, when you realistically only have 6 guys that can play, like really 6 guys that can play, and then one of your guys gets injured, and the least important starter in your starting lineup gets injured, and you don't even have anyone to step in and replace him. Matisse is as good as gone. It feels like Furkan Korkmaz is is not he didn't progress. He regressed in staggering fashion. So I don't know. I don't want to, I think the James Harden stuff is getting a little bit overblown. I understand the frustrations. I think we've talked about this a lot. At this point, it's just get healthy for me and move forward. I don't know though. It's tough right
Yeah.
now.
It definitely is. To touch on, well, first off, quick shout out to Danny Green.
Yeah.
Guy has just been the consummate professional throughout his entire career. Literally, like the picture perfect 3-and-D role model in the NBA. His entire time across so many teams has had success just about everywhere he's gone. Hate to see him go down like that, and terrible looking injury. Just never like to see that with anybody. A guy that's just the complete professional, does his job, and it also exposed just how weak the Sixers roster is in terms of the fact that like Danny Green is this necessary to the Sixers team at this stage
Yeah.
of his career is a concern. And looking down that bench lineup, Georges Niang, Matisse Thybulle, Furkan Korkmaz, none of those guys should ever be playing playoff minutes. None of those guys are cut from the mold of guys that can be playoff role players. And when you look at the remaining teams in the finals, even dating back to last round, you look at every single player in their top like 10 to 12, and they're probably better than the Sixers' entire playable roster. And that's crazy. Like Matisse Thybulle, he cannot be wearing a Sixers uniform next year. And he will never adjust to the point offensively where he can be playable for more extended than he already is. And sure, he shows his flashes defensively. He does some very unique things, but he just will never develop to the point of being in the rotation. And Shake Milton, it was awesome to see him flash a little bit. Maybe the bright spot for the Sixers. He played 28 minutes in that one, had 15 points, knocked down 3 threes, played
love
well.
Shake.
Yeah, give credit to Shake for doing his best. I thought Shake and Maxey were kind of the two guys that really kept competing until the end there, which I do respect. I think Shake probably saved his long-term career with the Sixers as the player option going into next year. But Niang's going to be around for the 1-year deal. But other than that, like none of these guys, even these guys are not. We're talking about like I feel good about going to next season with, and it's such a disappointment to have Joel Embiid, he didn't play great in that game, but his body obviously was falling apart. He played 44 minutes. Impressive to be able to do that. He was beyond gassed in that game, and to just not have any like competent supporting cast around him is so disappointing.
Yeah. That's another thing. I think that we're kind of mulling over that point, and the fact that we got Joel Embiid at like 40%. Like he was nowhere near regular Joel Embiid. And especially like games 3 and 4, he was able to come out and be really impactful. But like Miami, all they'd had to do was keep him in front. I think they realized very early on, especially like once they went back to Miami for game 5, like all they were going to do is just not let him get deep post position, and he was going to struggle. Like he couldn't hit shots the way he was shooting it before. JJ Redick even was talking about it. He was like, he shot a knuckleball from like 10 feet. It's like,
yeah,
that's not Joel Embiid. That's not the player that we know. He struggled at the free throw line like a lot more than we are used to. He couldn't shoot threes. Like one of the only ones I remember him making was a bank, like that he clearly overshot. So, I mean, this sucks. Like the end of the season sucked. It always does. It always does. It's never not sucked. Especially over the last couple years. But I don't know, man. I think that it was good for me to get a couple days away from that. Stop thinking about basketball too much and kind of just allowing it to simmer down a bit, because I'm kind of looking at it a little bit more objectively right now. And again, as much as it sucked, I'm not sick over it as much as I was.
Yeah, and this is coming from I would not consider myself a Doc Rivers guy, but by any means, but I think very little of the blame falls on him for this collapse, and I think he did his best to throw things at the wall, see what sticks, and just frankly didn't have the horses in the race to make it happen. And that is on Morey. I think it's pretty inexcusable on Daryl Morey's part to get James Harden, land your white whale, land the one guy you clearly had your eyes on, and just do nothing else to this roster because these are issues that it's no surprise that was the Sixers' downfall. We knew that this team was too slow. We knew that this team couldn't rebound the ball well enough. We knew they weren't athletic. And we knew that there was guys that just simply, not that they don't care enough, but they don't wear their heart on their sleeve enough. And I mean, the one play that is so memorable is the one that Jimmy Butler missed the shot, got his own rebound, tracked it down, and shot the 3 as like James Harden and the rest of the team is just kind of watching that happen. And it's so frustrating to watch. Philly's not a town where it's like ever okay to kind of be able to sleepwalk through games and to see them go out this way, especially in front of a home crowd, is so crazy. So I don't know. It's frustrating. Definitely was like a meltdown and a sad way to see it go out. But kind of like you said, they got to kind of move on. There's going to be a lot of moving and shaking parts this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to talk too much about it, but to allude to your point there, like they need a guy. They need a guy that's going to get ejected from a few games. They need a guy that's going to get like a couple extra technicals. Like I don't know who that guy is right now. There's a handful of them out there, and like they just need somebody like that. They need someone that's going to get everyone's ass. That's going to ruffle the feathers of people around. Make people uncomfortable. I think that's something that they're going to look at. It's something that literally every one of the Sixers, like anyone that represents the organization, players, coaches, front office, all of them over the last few days have talked about, mental toughness. Tobias went on like a 4-minute rant about it after,
Everyone did.
during his post game. And I mean, all credit to Tobias, a lot of, us two and the other PSP guys were talking about it this morning, and who knows what his future holds in this city. Daryl Morey talked about him as, part of the core. He mentioned him a few times. But I don't know. You have a couple quotes that you wanted to read off though, right?
Yeah. And real quick, like the Sixers are pretty handcuffed in what they can do in terms of they've used a lot of assets. They don't have a ton of picks together. They're pretty limited in what they can do. So Tobias is unfortunately the obvious answer. And this is by far not all Tobias's fault. There's plenty of other reasons, but I think it's pretty clear that he's on his way out the door. And to jump into a couple quotes. So some of these are after the game and some of these are in the exit interviews, but I kind of want to pick your thoughts on this. So
Yeah.
to start off with on the game itself, on Doc Rivers, this is from Doc Rivers, quote, "We never got into any offensive rhythm throughout the game, in my opinion, more than just the second half. But the second half, the turnovers, the sloppy play just killed us. I just didn't like how we played. I just thought we had more." Anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, he's right.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
definitely right. I mean, they not like Miami beat them. Like, let's be real. Miami outplayed the Sixers. They did.
Yeah.
But the Sixers beat themselves a lot. The Sixers didn't make it easy on themselves. Like Joel talked about it early in the series. Like we kind of had to be perfect from here on out. And they were very far from perfect. Especially in that second half. Like it just like the Maxey turnover where him and Harden miscommunicated, and then the Harden pass to Niang that like Embiid ducked and he got picked off, like back-to-back possessions, like those things kill you. And I mean, he's right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and yeah, I don't got much more on that, dude. This one, just like a sign of just his brilliant basketball IQ, that Doc Rivers. I did want to shout this one out on his thoughts after the game on what he learned from it was, quote, "I came to the conclusion at the end of the game that we were not good enough to beat Miami."
Yep.
It's poetic.
Great. Yeah, it really is. He's a scientist. He's got it down to, the chemical base here, but I don't know, man. Again, he's kind of right. Who knows?
Yeah.
Doc Rivers for you.
Yeah, you kind of alluded to this one, but from Tobias, quote, "Truthfully, just a lack of effort on our part. They just beat us at the glass. They beat us on 50-50 balls and hustle plays," which is just straight up what happened once again.
Yeah, but I don't know where that comes from. Like they talked so much about it, and the players talk about it, and then Doc Rivers talked about it, and it's like y'all are the ones that can do it. You're the only ones that can do anything about it. You know what I mean? Like it's not any one of the fans or the front office's job to like tell whoever it is, Furkan, to like try harder. Like you guys are the ones that have been with these people for so long. Like yell at people, get somebody moving. Like I don't understand how they went into this and like we weren't mentally strong enough. Like y'all are the only ones that can make a difference there. So like tell that to yourself.
Yeah, it shouldn't have to be like a coaching adjustment to like go harder for that ball on the glass or go
in
get
game
that
6 of round 2.
Right. So yeah, I agree with there. There's no adjustment. Like it's not like you're saying like don't play any more drop coverage on the pick and roll. You're saying like just go get the basketball, man. And 100% that's a look in the mirror kind of thing. This is somewhat of a roster construction issue, maybe more of a mentality issue, but Joel Embiid cannot be the guy that is like the leave it all on the floor, like the guy that sets the tone with that. And I mean, some of this is obviously a credit to Joel's impact, but some of this is just like an issue amongst the rest of the team. Is like if he doesn't have it in a game, the entire team does not have it. And there just has to be games where like if your best player doesn't have it, like everybody else picks it up. And like when you look at these other teams around like the NBA, like if there's a night where like Devin Booker doesn't have it for the Suns, the terrible example because the Suns just
I was
lost.
gonna
But
say
like,
such a
yeah,
bad timing
terrible.
there.
If we look at the
If
Warriors,
Luka
like
doesn't have it,
yeah, if Luka doesn't have it, like Jalen Brunson was gonna do his job, do his thing, get something. The rest of the team is gonna play harder defense, figure it out, find a way to at least keep them in the game until your star either gets it back or you like jump back out at it. So there just feels like there's none of that with the Sixers, and it's so ride or die with Embiid, and like that just has to change.
yeah, I think that's also another thing. Like, and I don't know if it's really more about like Embiid necessarily, but it's like time. I hate to be that guy. I really do, because I think that's a weak excuse. I don't think it's necessarily an excuse, but I do think it's like spending time playing together will remedy some of that. It also obviously takes the right personnel, and that's something that we'll talk about all summer.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm not gonna lie. I do, as much as I love watching the Sixers play, and I was upset and pissed that they lost, and it sucks to have to see the rest of these 4 teams play out for a chance at the championship. I do love the offseason, I won't lie.
Yeah. Quote from James Harden here. So 2 of these. I'll go back to back here. One when asked about his plans for next year, just quote, "I'll be here." And then another when they asked about like his recovery and his body was quote, "I've got a full summer to be straight and do the things necessary to come back even better." So how much of that do you buy, and what are your thoughts on that overall?
I genuinely do buy it.
Okay.
I think fully. I think 2 of these things can be true. I think James Harden hasn't been healthy for a while, like fully healthy for a while. But also like he's not the same player that he was. I think he could be better, and I think health is a large factor in that. We've talked so long about his inability to get downhill, his inability to get past like even weak defenders, and relying so heavily on the jumper. I think if he's fully healthy, which we're hoping going into next year and for the extended future, considering we're going to talk about that as well, but he's probably going to be here for a little bit, and I think he can be better. I don't think he's Houston Rockets Harden, which Embiid did talk about. But I think he can be better than he was, and I think partially that is health, and partially that is growing alongside Joel Embiid. I'm not out on this. I buy into that. I do.
Yeah, I think he does want to be here. I think he wants to be in Philly. I think
Yes.
that's important in this whole equation. Uh, I I think it makes the most sense for him to do the 1-year opt-in player option from just about everybody's perspective. I personally am not bought into Harden long term. And on the one hand, like I'm thinking about like he's 32 years old. Like that's not ancient in basketball terms. Sure, he's a little past his prime, but there's guys that play well longer than him. And for his IQ, his passing ability, the way he plays, he should be able to play for several more years from now. When we think about guys like Chris Paul, Kyle Lowry, that kind of tier of players who you obviously have to change your game. You have to make adjustments. There's adjustments he needs to make to his game in terms of adding a mid-range game, learning how to catch and shoot, not just like ISO dance. His ISO on this, he was 0.87 points per possession in ISO in the playoffs. That is the first time in forever for James Harden that he scored under 1 point per possession in ISO. And that's been like his game for so long, has been being able to do that. In Houston, that's all what it was about. He was getting close to 2 points per possession with isolation, which is absolutely like unreal numbers. And to be under that, that's the point where it's inefficient and just not reliable is a massive concern in my mind. And then when we talk about like the injury aspect of it, like I get it. Like hamstrings are obviously very tricky. You never really know. I'm sure that he's had issues going on for a while. He's got a lot of mileage on his body for sure. But like I don't know how much I buy into him like getting better. Like I really do think there's an aspect of kind of this is the James Harden. He either figures it out or he doesn't. And the level of him figuring it out, I'm not comfortable with locking him long term. Certainly not on a max deal. In my thought process, which I don't believe the Sixers think like this, I think they have a very different outlook on it. But if it's I want a max deal or I'm not coming back, you let him walk.
There's no chance that happens.
I don't think so either, but I think it would be pretty detrimental and like just about sink this era of Sixers basketball if they give James Harden a max deal.
I mean, I don't want to pay James Harden like $59.6 million when he's 37.
Yeah,
But again, it's you make a deal with the devil. Listen, man, they made this trade. We all knew we were gonna, what we're getting. We
for
all
sure.
knew what we're getting ourselves into. I think it's time to buy in and figure out how to make it work. I think having another year together, an off season together, an off season to get healthy and to play alongside each other. Like let's be real. And I like again, this isn't an excuse. I'm not by no means am I excusing the way that this season ended at all. Trust me. But they started playing together in late February.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's hard. It's really hard. Like I think we're all kind of coming to this conclusion right now. We're all kind of like having this real-time realization that it's really hard to win in this league. It's really hard. Like LeBron has skewed everyone's perception of what like being good for a long time is. Like the Warriors have screwed us all up. Giannis got bounced in the second round too. The Suns, like both defending conference champions, got beat. Like, and both beat, like, obviously, the Suns got their ass kicked, like, bad. But Milwaukee got their ass kicked too by like Grant Williams. Like, let's talk about the fact that they're like, this is a battle. Like, this Eastern Conference, like, objectively looking at it from the front, like, there's a lot of good teams and a lot of good teams that are battling for this spot. Like, are you going to get a better player than James Harden right now? Probably not. If you can figure out how to like optimize him alongside Joel Embiid, he's never played with a dominant center and a ball dominant center. Like he's got to figure this stuff out. Like this is all stuff that he hasn't done before. Catch and shoot, be that type of player, be like a strict point guard. Like I think that there's a chance that he's not like, MVP caliber ever again. I don't think so. But like, will he be an all-star next year? I don't think I can say he's not going to be. Like I'm okay with committing to that. I am. It's gonna suck, in a few years if he's ass, if he's old, if he's washed, like that's gonna be ass. But like, can you really like you can't like remiss these next few seasons of potentially winning, especially if you have a chance to like really optimize this roster, which I think they might, because you're not gonna want to pay that guy in the future. And Daryl Morey doesn't give a shit. Like, let's be honest, he's gonna pay whoever he wants.
Yeah,
and he wants to pay Harden.
For sure. I think so too. I think when the deal first happened, I kind of had accepted we were married to James Harden, whatever this James Harden may be. And I'm not like chasing him out the door either. Like he's still a very useful player. He still has a lot of good in his game, does a lot. He brought a lot to this team that they have not seen before. And in the way he passes and his creativity, there was a lot, the pick and roll, there was plenty that I liked. If he's willing to come back at like a legitimate price, like, and obviously he's still going to catch. That's the question. Like, if he's ready to take some less money for a long-term deal, I absolutely want him around. I absolutely want him with the Sixers. There's obviously like the whispers from Brian Windhorst and the Ramona Shelburne about like trying to open a third max slot for that next player. I'm out. I'm completely out on anything that involves trading Maxey. To me, if we're talking about Harden taking less money, like that's game with me. Trading Tobias, that's fine with me. Don't touch Tyrese Maxey. That kid needs to be here for his entire career. I've been blown away by how quickly he's gotten as good as he's gotten. I really can't put like a cap on how good I think he can be. And there's just the joy he plays basketball with, how good he is already. I'm absolutely not touching that. No. With Harden specifically, back to him, I also think Harden and Maxey is a pretty nice duo. I think that they open each other up a lot. I think Harden is a major reason for how quickly Maxey ascended, that little scoring burst that we saw in the second half of the season, taking the passing responsibilities off his plate. So I'm not saying like I want the guy out, but I'm definitely not ready to sign this guy up as my co-star.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I would be, obviously devastated, but I would be shocked if there's any type of like, even like Maxey rumors. Like they can say whatever they want to say today. The rest of this week, Daryl Morey is not moving Tyrese Maxey. They love him, and for good reason. They're completely justified in that opinion. He is incredible. He didn't have a fantastic series, but again, he's 21. He's younger than me. I started an internship today. Like he was playing in, game 6 of round 2 of the NBA playoffs. It's a little bit different here. He needs to be here. He's going to be here. I'm not really concerned about that. I'm interested to see what they do. I think there's 2 ways you can look at this. I think you can open up some money, which you have a chance to. I know you kind of talked about how they're a little bit locked up. I think there's a chance that they can open up some money here. And they always say you win championships within the margins, right? I think if you're planning on moving Tobias, I think you have one of two things here. You're either, you know, really mortgaging your future and giving up basically every last asset that you have to add an additional max player. Who that may be, I don't know. Is it Zach LaVine? Is it Bradley Beal? Question remains. Or you can go about this looking at it as a holistic standpoint and saying, okay, what do we really need? We have 3 stars. Where do we fill in the gaps and with who? And be very meticulous about who those people are. If you need a big, an athletic defending 4 that can space the floor, good defender. You need a wing that can space the floor and play defense. Like
Multiple.
you need a backup point guard. You need a backup 3. You need a good backup center. But is that Charles Bassey? Is it Paul Reed? Like you have to work within these margins, and I think they will. I do wonder though if they're how big Daryl Morey's eyes are getting, looking at the potentially available players this summer.
Yeah, no, he's a swing for the fences kind of GM, which I mean, in some regards, I respect it. But like a trade that like jumps out the page to me, and I'm not going to dive into like full specifics, but just the basics of it. And I honestly don't even think the Mavs would be interested in this based on how this playoffs have gone. But just Tobias Harris for Dorian Finney-Smith and Reggie Bullock, you can sign me up for that right now.
Yep.
And just my mindset is completely like get the win, like you said, win in the margins, get guys that just complement these players. And it's also not as easy as we're making out to say, because they're pretty strapped for money and against the cap too, especially with this Harden thing looming. So it's not going to like you have money to give a guy like a 3-year, $30 million deal or that kind of margin of like role player, but good role player kind of money. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I'm no cap wizard. I'm not entirely sure how this works, but like Danny Green could be off the books.
He's
it
not guaranteed.
It would be shitty of them to do that. We'll see how that plays out, but we're no morals here. We're talking just straight up money right now. He could be off the books. You have like damn near $10 million wrapped up in Korkmaz and Thibault, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like right there is $20 million. In my head, this is where I'm working, right? So if you're working against that and you move Tobias Harris, like you have some money there, right? And then you have some expiring guys, not many, but a few.
DeAndre Jordan, thank goodness.
Yeah, thank God. Him and Paul Millsap, 2 of the 4 backup centers that they have are now off the books. So I don't know. I feel like they are strapped for but no more than really any other contender, right? And the idea is some people will want to play for contenders, will want to take that money. Will James Harden take a little bit of a pay cut if he can convince himself, if Morey can convince him? And he said this is kind of a political answer from James Harden saying, I want to do whatever will help the team. But it's been rumored for a while that he may take less money. And I don't know, man, he's 32. He's not going to play forever. He's made a lot of money in his career. I don't know if that's kind of, in the back of his mind saying I could take this much for this long and potentially be on a contender, like a real-time contender for the next 3 to 4 years. Or I could take that super max and basically run this team into the ground. No money, no chance to win a championship. To me, that makes no sense. Put some incentives in there. If he's an all-star, if he, if they make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, give him a bonus. I don't give a shit, but find a way to work that out. And you have a chance to, maybe it's the max player, maybe not. Maybe it's some guys in between. Because I think there are some really solid players that fit the mold of what the Sixers are looking for out there. But they're going to cost you. You're not going to get those guys for dirt. You're going to have to pay somebody. And if there's money there, you don't want to use all 30 of it on one player. You could use 12 here, 8 there, 10 there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 2 points. One, I hope that's where Harden's mindset is. One thing to just say that. It's another thing when the contracts are actually put in front of you and you have your agent doing the talking for you and all that. So I hope that's where his mind is actually at. I'm not gonna lie, James Harden doesn't strike me as the most willing to sacrifice kind of guy in that respect. He's a pretty his all court habits, he has his expenses for sure. So that, and then also as far as the trades and clearing money, they still have to match trades within the cap. So it's you never can
Yeah.
really just ship a guy off and you're clear of it. You can
Right.
kind of find ways to do it, but you have to like take money back as well. So that's what makes the NBA so difficult too, in terms of like it's not like the NFL where you can kind of just get rid of guys. Like you got to take when you give away too. So that makes it hard to clear money. I do want to spit out. We've talked plenty about the Harden thing. One last little quote. I'll hit you with another back to back, and then reflect on, I guess, another Sixers failure a little bit. But from Jimmy Butler, this was right after the game, and when asked with the sideline on Joel Embiid, quote, "I love him. I'm proud of him. Yes, yes, yes. I still wish I was on this team. I definitely love the Miami Heat, though, man. I'm glad that I'm here, but I've got so much love and respect for Joel Embiid." And then Embiid, after the game, asked about Butler, said, quote, "I'm happy for him. I won't sit here and say I didn't wish he was my teammate. Still don't know how we let him go. I wish I could still have gone to battle with him."
Yeah, that was a salt in the wound. It really was,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Let me say two things. I don't care about Jimmy Butler. I said it. I don't give a shit. I don't. If he was still here and doing what he's doing in the playoffs right now, would I love him? Of course. Absolutely I would. But I'm not going to sit here and dwell over it. I'm not. What happened. It's been 3 years. Like, we sound like a scorned girlfriend. Like, let's get over it. As a whole, let's get over it. Has he won a championship? No. Has he been more successful than Sixers? Yes. Does that hurt? Yes. Let's move on. Those things can all be true, and we have to, as a whole, as a community, we need to move on. It sucks. That sucked to hear. To hear him kind of unprompted, like kind of out of the blue, like it wasn't even asked if he wished he still play together. He kind of went out of his way to say, "Oh, I wish I was still on his team." That hurt.
Yeah.
And it was uncalled for. And the Tobias Harris thing, first of all, just untrue. Just
a
not
ricochet
real.
shot.
Not. Why did Tobias catch a stray? Uncalled for. But it's also just not how it played out. Like, from all reports, I mean, maybe he knows some things behind the closed doors that we don't. But, say Ben Simmons over me. Say Brett Brown over me.
Al Horford over me.
Al Horford over me.
All apply more, yeah.
Yeah, they all apply more. Than Tobias is kind of like, oh, shit, we don't have anyone else to pay. I guess we'll pay Tobias. Like, that's kind of how it worked out. But, yeah, that sucked. Don't get me wrong. That sucked.
Yeah. First off, I am back in on Jimmy Butler.
No.
I am back in on Jimmy Butler. As much as like he is frustrating and he is not without his flaws, like, I mean, we're sitting up here talking about how the Sixers lack competitive fire, how they don't have a guy that will leave it out on the court. And like that's been something that has been needed alongside this core the entire time it's been here. And I don't think the core was ready for Jimmy Butler when he got here. Obviously, him challenging Simmons did not work out. We see the very two direct opposite directions, and both of those guys have gone in their career trajectories. And obviously, the jury is still out on what Simmons turns out, and if and when he returns to the court, how that goes. But for Butler specifically, like, I don't think that this Heat team is that good. And to watch him like masterfully maneuver to his spots, carry this team through stretches of all these games, each game he just would take over at times, is so admirable to be. And I respect the hell out of it. So I appreciate Jimmy. On the Tobias thing, for sure, there's zero people in the universe who looked at Tobias Harris and said, I think he's better than Jimmy Butler. That's just not at all how that played out. He definitely caught a ricochet shot there. I also really want to hear the uncensored version of that video because there's some pretty lengthy like bleeps before that, and I can't imagine what else was coming out of his mouth. So I don't know, but I certainly miss Jimmy. It hurts to watch like how much genuinely like him and Joel do seem to like each other and respect each other, and I mean it's frustrating. Obviously, like many organizations would make the exact same decision when given the full context of it, and that it kind of was like, to some extent, it wasn't Simmons versus Butler, but it looked like it was heading toward that. And to kind of get ahead of that was kind of the Sixers' intention. It's hard not to do when that's the guy that was your former number one overall pick. Obviously, still incredibly young, still an incredibly bright future at this time. And you see all the things he can do. This was a little before the point that we were starting to see the regression and all that. So it was an understandable decision, but it doesn't make it hurt any less.
Yeah. I mean, but like, again, it's one of those things that is what it is. I mean, what are you going to do? If we're going to sit here, like, I can't still be mad over it. Obviously, it's upsetting. It's disappointing to see, the Heat have success. But, like, it's not just Jimmy Butler. Like, it's the fact that they have, a fantastic front office that does a great job. They have amazing player development. They got guys like Gabe Vincent and,
Max
Caleb
Strus.
Barton, Max Strus, and all these guys that are coming up and playing, good basketball, playoff basketball. They have all these other guys. You talk about Spoelstra, like they're so much better of an organization than Philadelphia. So like, if we wanted to be in Miami, just go fly down to Miami and be a Heat fan. Show up 4 hours late to the game and do whatever you feel like doing. Like, that's okay to me. There's context that needs to be provided. It's not like, oh, Jimmy Butler was here and then he wasn't. There's more to it. It sucks, but like, I'm on the road to recovery, Sean. I've been working towards letting things go. These are one of those things you got to just let that one slide off your shoulders.
That's fair. What do you think Joel Embiid's confidence level is with the Sixers, just franchise as a whole right now?
God, I don't know, man. I mean, such a tough question because you really don't know. I mean, he's become so much like less public
Yeah.
over the years. He's become so much more secluded, and I mean, I'm sure he's confident in himself, and I'm sure he thinks if he was healthy, that series is different. And to be fair, if Joel Embiid is healthy, that series is different. Like, it's totally different. He is an entirely different player than what we saw in those 4 games that he played. And he missed the first 2. So like, Miami got a break. That's what happens to championship teams. They get a break. They got one. I'm sure he's pissed off right now. I can't imagine that he's feeling very good about this situation right now. But I think him and Daryl Morey have a good relationship. I think for him, like, maybe he has to be a little bit more unselfish and say like, hey, like, let me sit in and let's figure it out. Me, you, Doc, and Elton. Maybe James, if he's coming in there too. Like, let's sit down and figure this out. Maybe he's not a part of it. Maybe it's just Joel. But like, I don't know. But like, I really don't know if he's involved. Like, I think maybe he is. Like, none of us know.
Yeah, I think there's some. I mean, first off, like, there's definitely things that they don't do without running by him. Like, the Harden one, I think, is a A1 example. I'm sure Embiid signed off on that. I'll say I think his confidence level is lower than it's ever been in the Sixers, and he's always been a like want to be around forever guy, want to finish my career here. He mentioned how the front office can trade him 4 separate times in his post game interview, which is just like a weird thing to me. And he never did it in like a I want to go or anything, but he just in referencing like I'm not the guy that makes the decision. The front office does this. They can do this. They can do this. They can trade me if they want. Like, those kind of phrasing is how he brought it up. But it just kind of was one of those things to me that's like, this guy's not going to be around forever. If he's getting sick of this, like, I wouldn't even blame him, to be honest. And I genuinely think like our best opportunities to win a championship, like, are somewhat in our rearview mirror, and they still definitely have a chance. Like, they're grasping at straws to create this, like, basically rerun it back. But like, the window has drastically changed on when the expectations were to win, and like, obviously the Simmons thing throws a whole loop into it because the core was supposed to be like Embiid and Simmons, and that just did not work out. But like, we're now talking about Embiid. He's going to be 29. We're talking about James Harden, who's 32. Maxi's, I guess, a little bit of like a second tier hope at 21, but it's like he has to hit his prime at the same time that these two, if we want it to truly work. That it's like I'm not as confident as I've been, and I feel like Joel has to feel the same way.
I'm gonna not contradict you, but like, let me phrase this in a way. When we were talking about, earlier this season before the Harden trade, everyone, you and I, everyone else, we talked about the window, right? We talked about winning now. We talked about making this trade not for the future, not for picks, not for young guys, but for proven players that are going to help them win a championship. That's what they did. It goes both ways, right? The window is small, but every championship window is small. Like, unless you have Luka Doncic right now, everyone else is kind of in a situation where they're like, our window is small. Like, the Warriors are getting older. Maybe Boston's feeling pretty good right now. Jimmy Butler's not a spring chicken either. And once he's gone, that team is ass. So like, the window is small, but all championship windows are. And like, we've seen now that the NBA is as wide open as it's ever been. maybe, in our lifetime at least, right? There's no dynasties. There's no teams that are going back to back to back to back to back. There's no, ever since the Warriors, their dynasty ended, it's been open season, which I guess hasn't been that long, right? But regardless, it's been a few years. And, the Sixers, as disappointing as they've been, have been there. They just haven't put it together. And as simple as I'm making it seem, obviously it's not. But like you see, the reigning champion got knocked out in one more. Giannis got to play one more game this year than Joel Embiid. Chris Paul and Devin Booker got to play one more game. Luka Doncic and the Mavericks are playing another series. Like the Sixers are, like, to me, if I was looking at all the teams in, both playoffs, top 4 seeds, like the Mavericks are probably the team that I was confident. I was like, okay, they could, the Sixers played the Mavericks in the finals. Wouldn't you be like celebrating already? Like, don't you think?
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, anybody that could guard.
I feel like they always beat them.
Yeah, we didn't have anybody that could guard Jimmy Butler. We certainly don't have anybody that can guard Luka Doncic.
That's fair. That is fair. But like, again, I don't know. I don't know if Joel Embiid could be healthy. That's a question mark. If James Harden comes back at, a similar version to himself, that's a question mark. Like, but every team has this. I think right now, the best thing to do is to try to figure out how to optimize going into next season. Things have to change, right? They obviously do. It's just a matter about how they go about it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they have no choice. I'm not saying they're in the worst situation in the league, because there's definitely plenty of teams that would love to be in the Sixers' shoes right now. But and like we said, it is very hard to win a championship. Everyone has the same goal every year, and only one person can hit it. So it's like it's difficult. But like the time is very much now. Like the clock is certainly ticking toward, like, this is the offseason. They have to make it happen. And I feel like we've been saying that for a couple of years now. So it's like this is our, like, there has to be plenty of things that happen, and I'm interested to watch it play out.
Yeah, and I think, I feel like this really is the first offseason where Morey does have full control. Like, obviously things got screwed up last summer, like really screwed up last summer. This whole season got screwed up. Like, let's not forget where we were 6 months ago, right? Like 6 months ago, Joel Embiid was playing without anyone else, like without another co-star, without anyone, making that 35 mil. Like, think about what we were talking about. Like, we were ready to be in May, having not made a trade yet, right? Like, you and I kind of rationalized that feeling of being like, okay, well, we're just going to kind of be around, we'll probably lose in the first round, probably be like the 6th seed, whatever. And for good reason, we were in that position. So I think right now at this point, it's kind of, it hurts right now. It definitely does. It feels like, the light is getting smaller at the end of the tunnel. It's starting to close a little bit. But I mean, I don't know, man. You have Joel Embiid and James Harden on the same roster. Like, it's kind of crazy to think about. It is kind of crazy to think about. I think they have a chance. I think Daryl Morey's got some shit up his sleeve, hopefully. And I hope that, it ends up working out.
Yeah, definitely. That's pretty much all I got on this. I'll end with a quick final prediction. I got Warriors over Celtics
in the finals. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I can work with that. I'll go that. I'll just hop on the bandwagon with you. I wasn't expecting a prediction. I don't even know who I want. I mean, I want the Mavericks to win, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Whoever comes out of the West, I'll be rooting for. So that's just how it goes.
Yeah.
But if you're good, I'm good.
Yeah.
Little therapy session today, off-season episode 1. What a shitty time, right?
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Here we are again.
Just festering, remembering how how those last 2 games felt for the next couple of months.
Yeah. I mean, we're comfortable here. We've been here before, man.
Yeah, nothing new.
Doesn't get any easier though. It definitely doesn't. But so no more games to talk about. But we'll obviously be around for the rest of the postseason to talk about all the things that are inevitably going to happen over the next 3 weeks or so. Conference finals and finals. We'll be talking about the draft soon. The Sixers may or may not have a pick depending on what Brooklyn does. This offseason is definitely going to be an interesting one. There could be a lot of shakeup to be determined. So if you're willing to stick with us through it all, you stuck with us through, actually really quick before we go. Thank you guys again. We've made it through now our 3rd season that we've covered on the Pick Swap podcast. What an insane thing to say. But, whoever's been around for that long, thank you guys. We appreciate it always tuning in. Whether that's here, whether that's on the podcast, whether that's on Twitter, YouTube, whatever it is, we appreciate it. So if you guys are, sticking around, you can follow Sean at Sean_Bernard1. Follow me at JSBirrane17. Follow the pod at Pixel Pod. Check out the YouTube. Get us anywhere you find your podcast. And make sure you check out the link on the bios of this podcast for BetUS and use our code PIGSWAP at login for your first bet, risk-free up to $500. Keep in touch, and we will talk to you guys maybe later in the week, maybe next week. We're going to have to figure out a new schedule because there's no more games to play. But we'll be in touch soon.